from the Catholic Underground.
Today on the show, did your TV show get renewed? We check our vocabulary homework. Is Disney SkyNet? Our picks of the week and so much more. The Catholic Underground starts right now. Alrighty. It's time for the Catholic Underground. We're your weekly Catholic guide to the digital continent. It's episode number 264. I am Father Chris Decker. If you're listening live, you can join us in the chat room at catholicunderground.tv and get your chat on with us. Joining me this week, we've got Father Ryan Humphreys, as you know, the rector of the Minor Basilica of the Immaculate Conception in historic Natchitoches, Louisiana. Hello, Father.
Hello, world.
Also, Kathleen Lee. She is a teacher at St. Joseph's Academy in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. She is our semi-pro faith ninja. Hello, Kathleen.
Hello, everyone.
And, of course, Jeff Blackwell is the technical director of the Catholic Underground. He is the commandant of the Jeff Star 1 near-Earth orbit satellite. Hello, Jeff.
Howdy ho, neighbor.
And, of course, Mary Kate Taylor is our disembodied video director from the live stream, and we forgot to turn her mic on. So you can see all of her handiwork. We just can't hear her. Totally my fault.
No, it's my fault.
Okay.
So there.
Yeah. Well, the list has finally come down from on high, and we know which television shows have been renewed and which ones have been canceled. And there are some surprising ones on the list. You might ask yourself, well, this is the Catholic Underground. Why do we care about such things? Well, it's actually because we are, in fact, a show that mixes a little bit of what's happening in your world with our Catholic faith. And, you know, Kathleen, Catholics actually do watch television.
What?
I know.
I thought I was the only one.
No, sadly, no. Father Ryan watches a good deal of television when he's on his treadmill, don't you, Father?
Yeah, when I'm on the treadmill, I really like to. I've been reading a lot more since Lent, but I do like to catch some TV when I can.
You mean to tell me that you actually carried over some of your Lenten practices into Easter?
I know it's shocking.
Isn't it?
And I don't think it's going to last much longer. But you know, it's been about 4 weeks, and I'm continuing my reading, and I'm woefully behind on shows. But this is the time of year where I decide whether I need to catch up on half a season of the Tomorrow People. Yeah. When, you know, if the show's not going to go any further, right, do I really want to get into it more? You know? Yeah.
In fact, the Tomorrow People was one of the ones that was axed. Yeah, and I was actually viciously too soon before its time. Because the Tomorrow People, I was actually a fan of the Tomorrow People whenever it was. I didn't ever watch the British series. There was an old British series, I think, from the 80s. But there was a show on Nickelodeon that was the Tomorrow People that had the same kind of premise. And whenever I was growing up, back when I was a youngster in middle school, I watched the Tomorrow People. And so I was really interested to see this reboot. And I was starting to get into it. In fact, I'd caught up. And, well, now we're not going to know what happens. And there are a couple of other ones, Father. Are there any of the other ones that you watched that were notable, that were axed from the list?
The only one that I really enjoyed that was cut, and I knew it was just a matter of time, is The Neighbors.
That was an awesome show.
It's just so weird. It's a concept show. You know, they kind of call them high concept shows.
Yeah.
And it's a weird show. There's no doubt.
It lasted, 4 seasons?
It lasted 2 seasons.
2 seasons. Oh.
Yeah. Well. And it you didn't, you know, it's not like it ended on a cliffhanger or anything, and there wasn't really great arcs to the show. It was just weird, quirky, exactly what you'd expect, something akin to like the Coneheads kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it had a great kind of chemistry among completely ridiculous New Jerseyites. It was a good show, and I'm sorry to see it go.
That's right. What was now all the aliens? They come from whatever their planet is. I can't remember. But they choose unassuming names.
Well, they say we're going to choose. They choose unassuming bodies, but the names are what they consider to be the perfect human specimen. So
that's right.
You know, so his name is Larry Bird, and his wife's name is Jacqueline Joyner Kersey, and their kids are Reggie Jackson.
Yeah.
You know, and all these kind of things, and it's insanely comically ridiculous. My favorite episode of that show is actually when they thought Halloween was the invasion. And so every Halloween they would prepare to be invaded by little tiny kids. You know, and they would lock all the gates and hide inside and cry.
I myself really enjoyed The Neighbors. I haven't caught up with it, but I guess I have some time now to do so.
You really do.
That's right. So oddly enough, Kathleen, you were a fan of Revolution, but that is also on the red list.
Yes, and you know, I haven't been up to date with it. So there's a lot on my DVR, a lot on my
a lot of you got to
Hulu.
press play for weeks now. Yeah.
But now I'll have time to catch up on it.
That's right. Now Revolution was the one about what was that the one with the world all of a sudden has had an electromagnetic pulse? Is that what it is?
And there's no more power.
No, it's not an electromagnetic pulse, and it may be a spoiler, but there are apparently a bazillion nanobots that, in fact, are sucking up all the electricity. And that's the spoiler at the end of season 1, which was a year ago. And so it's not possible to turn the power back on until you find a way to shut down all the nanobots.
Jeff had a nanobot infestation in his garage once. All his power tools didn't work.
Those pesky nanobots, they'll do it every time.
They'll get you.
Can't live with them. Can't be a Borg without them. Let's see. So and then also noted Suburgatory, which I heard was funny, but I never watched.
It was a little more filthy than I would have liked, but it was very funny.
I heard, yeah. Dracula.
Yeah, not
also
good.
Enlisted. I don't know what that's about.
That was the one about the military group in Florida, the rear detachment of a bunch of zany soldiers that were just. It was a funny show that was actually very patriotic and very very pro military, and I'm not surprised it didn't make it.
And then of course the Michael J. Fox show, his reintroduction back into network TV post Parkinson's diagnosis.
Yeah, it was kind of dull.
Yeah, and that's what I hear is that it was kind of a dull show.
Yeah.
It had really nothing to do with Michael J. Fox's ability to act and everything to do with the premise of the program. But there were shows on the green list. Surprisingly, I was really surprised to see Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. back on the green list. I guess maybe having the Captain America, the Winter Soldier tie-in doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
But I thought that this might actually be a little too high concept for folks. But actually, no, it's actually a well-done Joss Whedon show that's lasting into a second season.
Yeah, and it's going to be a good second season. It's had a little bit of confusion, and of course, there's all kinds of difficulties with a show like that because they're not allowed to use certain names and certain tie-ins. But it's a fascinating show, so it turned out well.
That's right. And Kathleen, any of your favorite shows get renewed?
Yeah, I am a big fan of the vampire shows.
All of them.
Not all of them.
The whole catalog.
I am a big fan of Vampire Diaries, of course. But the spinoff of the originals, not so much.
No.
In my humble opinion.
It's set in New Orleans.
I know, but
it's not doing it for you.
Yeah.
Is Supernatural renewed?
I don't know.
Because I know a lot of folks.
I believe
it
was.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was. Everybody likes that show. I've only seen a couple of episodes. It scares me a little bit. I'm scared of a lot of things. I might find it surprising, though. But
yeah.
Well, I saw that Grimm is on the list.
Yeah.
Now, my youngest daughter got me hooked on that when it started a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And so it's now one of our regular Friday night shows that we watch. And because I don't care too much about, if it gets too raunchy, I don't want to watch it. Right. Or if it's too dark. This is more along the lines of mythology and these creatures that live among us, and the Grimm is out to, Anyway, it's very well done, and I'm glad to see that it's back because it's one of the very few network shows that I watch on a regular basis.
Any on your green list, Father Ryan?
Yeah, actually, Grimm is one of my very favorite shows. The 100, which is based upon a series of books about the potential end of the human race. It's a really good show, and I'm surprised it got renewed, but it's a great show. Elementary, the kind of updating of Holmes and Watson with Johnny Lee Miller has proven to be one of my favorite shows. I don't even know why, but it's really good. And then The Mentalist, the show a lot of people like, which was expected to be canned. And in fact, they even wrote the last few episodes that I've watched
just in
around
case.
the principle that's going to be canned, and now all of a sudden it's coming back. So
wow.
Now, oddly enough, all of the crime dramas and those procedural shows are coming back. All of them.
Yeah,
that's crazy. I've never gotten that genre of film.
Me either.
I like them. I do love me some Criminal Minds, some CSI. New York, though, I was a New Yorker.
Oh,
because now there's like six of different kinds. And I was surprised that Hawaii Five-0 made it. I love me some Hawaii Five-0. It's on my DVR.
But when they have the original theme, do they use
They do.
Oh, the theme song is the only part of that show I like.
Yeah, but it's a little
so
more
good.
techie, new age. Not new age, but
anyway,
Sorry.
I like it. It's got some Alex O'Loughlin in it, and
oh, so that explains why you like it, there, Kathleen.
I mean,
That might explain why it's been renewed. I don't know.
Hello.
True. That's very true.
Kathleen, do you have? You can't tell us if you're a Nielsen journalist, right? Where you get the little dial and everything. You watch TV and you dial what you like and you dial down what you don't. Have you? No.
Mm-mm.
Kathleen doesn't know about our rating system. Apparently, that's good. Thankfully, you don't know about it either because you're still watching the Catholic Underground. So, yeah, I don't know why these procedurals do so well, but people love them. Man, if they put like a Law and Order marathon on,
oh my!
There are some people that they just turn their phones off. They'll be out of commission. They take sick days, and they'll But me, only if there's a Star Trek,
We just knew that was going to come up again. That Star Trek thing.
Well, actually, the cool thing is on BBC America, when I finish my long mass schedule on Saturday, they usually show Star Trek: The Next Generation in the evening.
Just for you.
Just for me until Top Gear comes on, and I can only take so much Top Gear.
Right.
I love me some British Top Gear.
Well, you see, that's why Kathleen and I are friends.
Yep.
We trade off at the the 9 o'clock hour when Top Gear comes on for 17 hours.
Love it.
Yeah, exactly. So, now all the pay cable shows, which don't care about ratings, are not on the list, so we won't even include them. But yeah. So maybe you watch some of these TV shows. Maybe you don't. Maybe you keep it on Catholic TV. And I guess we're happy about that. But how many reruns of the Catholic Underground can you watch in 1 week?
All of them.
What?
Not in a week.
No, actually, we have quite a catalog now, Kathleen. Probably
You're talking about 265 hour.
That's true.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but if
you could watch all the ones with me in it in a week.
Well, but those are getting up there too.
That's true.
Well, I think it's about time we told you who we were. Thou art listening to the Catholic Underground. We are online at catholicunderground.tv, and you can always go to our website at catholicunderground.com to get information on who we are and what we do. I am Father Chris Decker, joining us via Skype, Father Ryan Humphreys. We've got Jeff Blackwell, Kathleen Lee, and the unseen but always felt Mary Kate Taylor. She's always there inside each one of our hearts. Our picks of the week are coming up a little bit later, but first, Disney has invented swarming robots that are just about ready to begin taking over the world. Well, almost. Father, this is, if you've seen the YouTube video, it's really, really awesome.
It is. In an effort to bring animation off the screen and onto the wall or the ceiling or really any part of a theme park ride, Disney has invented what they're calling pixel bots. And this is the work of the Imagineers. And so as the name implies, each robot effectively makes up a pixel in a live animation, just like if there's a live video screen. Yeah. And so the little square has two small magnetic wheels that allow it to simultaneously attach itself to a wall or any flat surface, but also to move the thing around. And it uses kind of that same technology that is in the what am I thinking of? The little cart doodad, Segway, the little Segway device. And so internal LCDs allow for hundreds of colors, and a highly complex computer keeps the whole thing kind of working so nobody bounces off of each other. The good news is that the bots are not autonomous
yet.
So they're not ready to create SkyNet right away. But first, they're going to spend years being underappreciated on the wall of a Disney theme ride, which will, of course, inspire them to become hateful, angry, and then, of course, build SkyNet at some point in the future. But until then, it's really, really cool.
That's right. You thought you had a problem with nanobots. Wait until these little suckers start coming after you. They're extremely cute. You know, in my pick of the week, we'll see a little bit why. But you watch the video of these little pixels that are kind of rolling around, and they actually have algorithms built in so that if one of them gets separated, like say a child comes and picks one of them up and then takes them away, well, all of the pixels that are rolling around making this picture will fill in to actually try and complete the program, complete the picture.
Wow.
And then if the child sets down the little pixel again, it tries to roll back over to where it was, and they make room for it. It's just so weird. And so you're thinking, that is the cutest thing. Look at that little thing.
So what do they do to the child, though?
The child is roundly mocked.
I'm just kidding.
The whole image becomes a giant series of mocking words for the child to read if they're old enough.
That's right. That's right. if you ever want to see your child again, tell them to stop moving these pixels around. Yeah.
Disney friendly though.
They are. That's right.
Disney friendly insults.
That's right. That's right. Like
Chowderhead.
We think you're the dopiest of the 7 dwarves. Things like that. Yeah. Anyway, so I don't know. What would we do with something like this? Is this just art for art's sake, would you say?
Well, if you're asking me, I think right now it's just art for art's sake. I think it could become something fairly amazing, like as a TV news backdrop. That would be kind of neat.
Yeah.
And I could see it working in schools to be something truly amazing. Like I could see it really if you had a much, much larger circumstance, like an indoor stadium where you wanted to do something much, much cooler than just have a scoreboard at the end. Like if you had it moving around the stadium or something, that could be neat. But
I think this is kind of cool. And as an artist, my brain is just teeming with ideas, especially if you're talking about like coding. Teaching children to code or learning coding in college, and to be able to write these large just choreographies for these little machines. It could really, really be neat. In fact, one of my friends was watching the YouTube video of these little pixels saying, this reminds me of the opening ceremonies of the Olympics because you're watching it from, I guess you're looking at a wall or watching it from above, and you're seeing them all make these little patterns and things. Really, really cool. So we'll put a link to it in the show notes, and I might be able to finagle getting a video of it up on the video feed if you're watching the video podcast version of our show. Well, we move from these quirky little pre-SkyNet devices to a little bit more quirky. Any cook worth his salt, which Kathleen, as you know, originally worth his salt was an allusion to the fact that Roman soldiers got paid in salt. From hence we get the word salary. But any cook worth his or her salt will need to know the differences between American and international cooking vocabulary.
Yes.
And this is a big deal.
Yes. And, for those of you who are culinary experts, while
I'm
traveling.
not. Father Ryan is.
Oh, no, I'm not either. I just am like, put the green stuff in the thing. And for those of us who travel, especially to the UK, you might want to know some of this lingo. So I'll go over a few of them.
And actually, when you're in Europe in a non-English speaking country, almost always if there's a translation of a menu, it's not in American English, it's in the Queen's English.
English.
Right.
It's the Queen. So if you put arugula in your salad.
And who doesn't? Spicy.
Me.
Tasty. You don't like arugula?
I don't like salad, so what? Anyway.
There's the rub.
So we know it as arugula, but in the United Kingdom and Australia, they call it rocket.
Everywhere it's known as rocket, a rocket salad.
They get sassy. I like that a lot. For those of you who enjoy the rutabaga, also not one of my faves, is sometimes referred to as swede, but also called turnip or neep in some parts of the United Kingdom. And so if you want some neep in your salad.
Actually, Father Ryan was known as Swede whenever he was in high school.
Oh, wow.
Because I was tall, blonde, and had blue eyes. That's not true.
Well, there you go. Kosher salt in the United States.
Sorry.
Oh,
Sorry, keep going.
My. Kosher salt in the United States is known as flake salt. In Great
It never shows up on time.
And in the United States and Canada, we know them as cookies.
Yep.
This is on my list, on my grocery list. But there are in England, Australia, and New Zealand called biscuits.
Also in Malaysia.
Oh. And that's the best way to get confused if you're ever overseas and someone says, "Oh, would you like some biscuits?" And you go, "No." Do I look like it's breakfast time? No, I don't want any biscuits.
I don't want a large starchy roll. Thank you very much.
Big
but
floury
good thing,
dumpling looking thing.
If you're from the South, either way.
In the South, you'll request biscuits at any time.
Sure.
Yeah.
I could go with either one. Turnovers in the United States. Now, turnovers are like folded pastries. That's the name, turnover.
Or like a Natkish meat pie for anybody who has had that kind of meat pie thing. Yeah.
Also called hand pies in the United States.
I've never heard
that.
Hand pie.
But let's go ahead and maybe up north they call them that.
Maybe so.
Whatever.
Maybe.
The Pennsylvania Dutch, I think, call them hand pies.
Oh. Well.
In the United Kingdom, they're called pasties or pasties.
Depending on
if you are in Harry Potter or not.
Pasties.
That's our reference.
Our one UK listener has just stopped.
Yes.
Finally knowing what a pasty is, though, makes me wonder, why would you want to put pumpkin in that?
Yeah, the pumpkin pasty. Yeah. But then again, I don't like the idea of pumpkin juice either. So
no, it's
JK, you're really not.
That's gross.
Why would you want to drink squash? Just not good. Anyway.
Anyways, now down here in the South, we are very familiar with our pork rinds, or scratchings, as they're called in the United Kingdom when they're dry. But they are also referred to as crackling, and we call it that here.
Actually, in Louisiana, we call it cracklings. I wonder if it's because just that Cajun French thing.
Yeah. So in Australia, New Zealand, United Kingdom, crackling is, and South Louisiana, crackling is the way to go. Now, in the United States, we also do love our sour cream. But in the UK, they put it in the past tense, and it is soured cream.
Which
sounds less good.
I was going to say, makes it a lot less appetizing.
Disgusting.
Well, you're going to need some soured cream for this.
I
don't want
cream that's gone bad. Like in the past, months ago.
Yes.
I don't want this in my biscuits.
Someone's consciously soured it.
Ew.
Yeah, it's not good.
In the United States and Canada, we have superfine sugar.
Yeah.
Superfine.
But it is known in the UK, New Zealand, and Australia as castor sugar.
Yeah.
Didn't know that. Now, in the United States and Australia, we in the Aussies call it dessert.
Yep.
But is pudding, sweet, dessert, or afters in the UK?
I actually call them afters.
Afters.
I think we'd have some afters now. Yeah.
I do like the idea of the sweet because when we're in Italy, of course, you get done with the meal and you go, "È dolce?"
Yeah.
A little sweet,
See.
Yeah. So that's but this is one of those things too. When I'm reading Harry Potter and you talk about pudding all the time and you go, "Good God, how much pudding can these people eat?" But it's a completely generic term that means absolutely anything that you would eat at the end of the meal, sweet or savory.
Anything from the trolley, we'll have the lot of pudding. We had the $240
worth.
We had to have the pudding. And then
approximately 7 galleons.
Finally.
Yeah. So if you broil something in the United States, I don't know a lot of people who broil things, but it's that under drawer on your
oven.
On your oven. Yeah. It's a broiler. We used to make grilled cheese in that.
Oh, that's clever. But then you have to turn it over.
No, you just make a sandwich and
oh, I see.
Okay. Okay.
It's called in Australia and the UK, they call it grilling. And grilling in the United States, something, shout out to my dad, he is the grill master, is barbecuing in Australia.
I think that's like a presidential office now, the Grill Master General.
The Grill Master General?
Yeah.
I think my dad should run.
I think it's an appointed position.
So these are things that if you are going overseas, just print out this little list, bring it with you, because you do not want to be asking for soured creams on your biscuits. With your rutabagas. It's going to be bad. It's just going to be bad.
That's right. They're going to call you a flake salt.
Yeah.
If that happens. So we hope that was completely uselessly useful information, which is the kind you come to expect from the Catholic Underground. So
you're welcome.
Yeah. Moving into slightly more useful information, Wi-Fi security company Dropcam has upped their game. Now, these Dropcams are really cool. I don't have one, but I've been following a couple of folks that use a Dropcam. And it really is a robust little camera for surveillance, and so they're getting better, Jeff. Yeah.
And I didn't know anything about it until I saw the show notes today. And there's a little video in the link in the show notes, which you can find at where? CatholicUnderground.com?
Yeah, as always, whenever you want the show notes, you just look for our most recent show.
So
there they are.
This is pretty incredible. And well, tell us more. Yeah.
Dropcam basically has two new pieces of useful tech. One is on the software side, other on the hardware side. You see, so a lot of products have these differentials in hardware and software, but most of them have to be plugged into your PC. And there's a lot of difficult math whenever you have that happening. Dropcam does all the work for you. So they're basically you plug it into the wall and it works. But one of the things that I think is really cool is Dropcam can then do all sorts of neat things based on the data that it receives. So, for example, if Kathleen walks into my office, it can trigger an alarm or a notification. But if your cat walks by, it won't register that. And so it's doing with software, but also with hardware, some very basic facial recognition, or in the case of its little hardware thing, called a Dropcam tab. Say you've got this little bitty metal piece that looks like an Apple remote. it measures movement and location and proximity. So you put it on something like the door, and DropCam knows that the door is open or the door is closed or somebody's trying to open it because it's vibrating. And so if you can imagine now, the things that are standard in our iPhones, like an accelerometer, like things that are measuring constantly, we're now using them for the work of surveillance. And so you could put it on your dog, and that way DropCam would know where it is all the time. And so this is really something, because up until recently, the home security market is basically just cameras, or now kind of the new thing is an IP-based camera solution. Well, this is even bringing it a little bit farther than that. And Father Ryan, do you have a DropCam yet?
No, but I've been paying, my parish has been paying through the nose for security systems, you know, kind of constant monitoring stuff. And it's largely wasted money. You buy one DropCam, you turn all that nonsense off, and you just have it send you a text message every time anybody passes into like the office space of my rectory, and then easy enough. You know, I mean, I can look at it and say, okay, something's going on. I can push the button. It brings up a live video feed. I see there's somebody shouldn't be there. I call 911 from my bedroom. You know, and so it's incredibly easy. It's $200 for the pro version, $100 for the lesser version. But, you know, I mean, I'm very, very seriously considering moving to some of these. If DropCam would make a PTZ, a pan tilt zoom camera,
like it.
Yeah,
I might very well seriously consider using that for an easy way to stream the mass before we can until we get a much better system in place.
Oh, nice, yeah.
Yeah, because the DropCam, unless I'm mistaken, is like a 720p camera. It's an extremely high quality, high def camera.
Yeah, it's a high def camera, and you can share the feed publicly with whoever you want.
Yeah. So I know the folks I were talking about that started from the very beginning was This Week in Tech. Whenever they started building their new studio, they put a DropCam in so you could follow the process. And DropCam, part of their software is they have a DVR built in for the extremely well-paid version. And so you could watch the whole thing, but it's publicly available, or it could be within your private network. So you plug it in, you assign it an IP address, and it just works.
Is there any kind of monthly fee associated with it? I mean, because you're kind of doing the monitoring, but you still have to have some sort of provision for the data stream. Is that correct, Father Ryan?
You have to pay if you want them to do the DVR part. So if you buy the DropCam or the DropCam Pro, you can have the device outright. You can watch the stream outright. But if you want to enable the data capture part of it, then you pay a fee. And I think it's one fee for as many cameras as you have.
Wow.
So, you know, I think it's something maybe like, even if it's $15 a month, that's still, if you have 8 or 10 cameras, that's a really, really cheap way to do some fairly high-end surveillance.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
and especially when now that they have this video face thing, you can have it do all sorts of triggers that will, you know, text you or call you when something goes up, or when there's any motion, or when there's just a face motion. And, you know, that's a gigantic win too, because if you're really smart and clever, you can rig that into automatically doing all sorts of other things, you know.
Yeah, and me, I don't think in logical steps, so it would be lost on me. But Father Ryan could probably make it, you know, alert, I don't know, the British Embassy.
I would have it reply a tweet to the Holy Father in Rome in Latin saying, hey,
someone's in my house.
Someone's in my house. Pray right now.
Yeah. Speaking of retweeting, this is who we are. You're listening to the Catholic Underground. We are always online at catholicunderground.tv. I am Father Chris Decker with Father Ryan Humphreys via Skype. We've got Jeff Blackwell, Kathleen Lee, and Mary Kate Taylor. Our picks of the week are nigh. But first, we do what we pretty much always do. We love lists, and so we're kind of at our weekly list. We have one long list this week of 12 Latin words that shaped the faith. And so we'll try and go through them in a, you know, timely fashion. But some of these are words that maybe you hear, and we certainly hear the Englishized, the anglicized version of these quite often. And so we thought we'd go through it. Okay, so Father Ryan, grazia.
Grazia.
That's right. Which of course translated as grace, the very life of God within us, both sacramental grace and actual grace. I like to call actual grace the snow pea to the head, you know? Actual grace is the grace that God injects into a soul that needs to convert from its former ways to the ways of God. and so he kind of does that little special, right?
Right, and grace, the economy of grace, is kind of where the catechism begins with the economy of grace, and the idea is that basically our entire lives as Christians is about developing within ourselves a greater capacity for grace, and then keeping ourselves from doing things that limit or rob us of grace. Sin robs us of grace. Mortal sin prevents us from receiving new grace. When we do something which is good, we receive meritorious grace. And it's unfortunate, but really in the last 50 years, we've not talked about grace at all. But in reality, the life in the world we live in really is a function of kind of this economy of grace. And while the bad thing would be to go to the extreme on one side and say, I got 37 indulgences today, I got 416 years out of purgatory today. That's the kind of extreme side. But without talking about grace, without being aware that the whole point of the Christian life is to get and receive the grace that God offers, then we're kind of just wandering around saying, well, shouldn't we all be nice to one another? Yeah. And unfortunately, that's what some Christians have become. And so grace, is one of these things that we really do need to recover. It's the foundational aspect of Christianity in terms of the Christian life. And for most of us, it's something we've unfortunately never heard from the pulpit or from a CCD class.
Yeah, in fact, I talked a great deal about grace today for first reconciliation, the other thing. First communion, first Eucharist.
Holy communion.
It's been a long day, folks. And so, I was talking about the economy of grace and how receiving the Eucharist, receiving the sacraments, I was very proud to say that all of my young'uns knew how many sacraments we had, and they were able to name them for the most part. So that was very good. And then, of course, that leads to the next Latin word, prex, prayer.
Right. Yeah.
Prayer is the means by which we receive grace. And we're not just talking about our own private prayer, which does merit grace, but also public prayers, right, like liturgy.
Right. Anytime we raise our heart and our mind to God, we're experiencing prayer in some way, shape, or form. But there is the prayer of the church, and then there is the prayer that we take from the church, which is the fount and the source of our own personal prayer, and the source of all grace, as Vatican II says. And then we take that home and we do something with it. And so our personal prayer and then the prayer of the church together are the way in which we receive this grace that God wants to offer.
That's right. As I often remind my parishioners, and really anybody who'll listen whenever they walk by my soapbox at the corner, really, it is the prayer of the church, the prayer that is shaped within the liturgy, that then forms the methods for our private prayer. Oftentimes we wonder, well, gee, how do I start? What do I do? Well, we can actually take any part of the Mass and we can spin that off into a way to pray. If you're talking about the penitential rite, the Kyrie eleison, the Christe eleison, being able to ask God for forgiveness in my own life when I'm sitting in my couch and not just when I'm sitting in the pew. And any one of those components of the Mass can really be an outcropping within my own personal prayer. So gratia and prex, two very important Latin words. And then
Father, before you go on,
yeah.
I got a quick question because I have seen grazie spelled and you're pronouncing it grazia.
Well, this is the Latin and
the
not,
Latin, okay,
and not the
okay.
Italian.
Ah, okay. So how is grazia spelled?
Gratia, grazia.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, Latin is very well, at least ecclesiastical Latin is very interesting in the way that it forms the words. Mm-hmm. So when you have the ATI together, it's atia.
Okay.
The T is kind of seed.
I just learned something there. This is good. And then prex, how's that spelled?
Prex.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Kind of like it. Latin is good that way. Pretty much, with few exceptions, it's spelled more or less like it sounds.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like in English when you have tion, it's like shun.
Yes.
There are a few things like that in Latin, but for the most part, it's spelled like it sounds.
All right. Sorry to interrupt, but
no, that's quite all right. No, Jeff, we value your Jeff on the street questions. These are important for us. Huh? So moving into the sources of grace. First of all, Trinitatem, the Holy Trinity, of course. Yeah. Persona, which is the person, and especially when we speak of the one person of Christ, but his two naturae, his two natures, right, Father?
Yeah, and this was the source of a lot of drama early on because Christ is truly God and he's truly man. But How do you explain that? How does it work? And does that mean if he is truly God and truly man, well, could he have sinned? Did he sin? Could he have wanted to sin? Could he be tempted? Did he have two distinct wills? Like, did he choose in his humanity, but his divine will overtook? And so all these questions that, frankly, bored people start asking that do have real implications in terms of the moral life and in terms of theology start becoming real difficult questions. And so what ends up happening in the midst of what we call the Arian heresy, when St. Athanasius was up there, kicking butt and taking names, they start to arrive at the idea that there is one persona. There's one person, or the second person of the Trinity is one united persona, and that each of the other persons of the Trinity is a persona, but that Christ has two natures within that one person. So he is truly God, he is truly man, he is entirely God, he's entirely man, and yet at the same time, he is one unified and intact person, one divine person. And so all these things get into all kinds of implications about the moral life, all sorts of implications about imitating Jesus. But it's one of these things that's hugely important because we can't really understand modern theology without understanding that unity of the two natures in the one person of Christ.
And speaking of that, of course, is incarnare, to be infleshed, right? When we speak of the incarnation, this is the word that we use, the becoming flesh, the infleshing of, in this case, Jesus Christ.
Right, and that's a big deal because in the Greek mind, the idea that the body was basically just a prison. That's what Plato thought. He said, our true nature is our soul, and that the body is merely a prison. And in fact, a lot of modern day Calvinist Reformed Baptists in the modern Baptist tradition would say that the body is merely flesh. It's trash. It's garbage. It's going to be thrown away. It's meaningless. It's useless. But when we go back in, we start to understand that Christ was incarnate.
Right.
He took flesh upon himself, not as a prison, but in order to sanctify it, in order to make it something greater than it was. Yep. And so that's a big deal, too, in terms of how important it is that we treat our bodies well and how important it is that we act and try to bring about good in the world.
That's right.
Without this notion of incarnation, we basically just say the world is irrelevant, throw it away, I'm just going to go off and do my own thing.
Paging Dr. Gnostic. Yeah. Exactly. And so then we move from these three Latin words into the means of grace. One of the first ones we say every Sunday, credo in unum Deum. I believe in one God. The credo, actually the belief system that we have, to believe opens us up to grace, right?
Right, and to believe is a choice that we make, just as love is a choice that we make, and it grows within us into something greater with the grace of God.
Yeah. And then misa, to be sent, right? To send. The Mass is a means of grace for us.
Right, and the entire kind of mentality of the Mass is that we come to be fed, we come to the sheepfold, the beautiful old tradition of having the altar rail with a gate there. Mm-hmm. You come to the gate, not to pass through it, but to be fed and then to go back out, to be sent out and to bring other people to Christ, the sheep gate. It's a beautiful image.
That's right. One of my favorite things in a lot of the older churches is that notion of the communion gate being a sheep gate. Because, of course, it was Good Shepherd Sunday this Sunday, and I often think about that, especially in my head. In some of those churches, there are priests that would still close the gates as the Mass would begin, and that sound of the chink of the gates closing, and then they're opened again only whenever the priest is coming out, right? Whenever they're going to do something. But this idea that we're called to Christ in the sacraments, and He is the one who feeds us. He's the one who gives us what we need for a life of grace. Substantia, substance, right?
Right, and this is especially important when it comes to the sacraments and what the sacraments really are. And a lot of this, again, is theological, but the sacraments have the substance of divine grace. And so they make present, they make physical that which began as something spiritual, that is divine grace. And understanding what substance is and exactly what it means, and the nature of it, and form and matter, and the efficient cause and the final cause, and all these big things go into understanding how the sacraments work. Important.
And speaking of sacraments, sacramentum, which originally was an oath, right?
Right. It comes to us from a Greek mysterion, And the idea is that we are making the mystery present, not that we can understand it, but that we are choosing then to receive the mystery, that which is beyond our capacity to understand. And of course, from this we get the sacraments, and we have this combined with our philosophical understanding to come to a theological understanding of the effects the sacraments have, the nature of the sacraments, and on and on and on.
That's right. And then there are 3 more on the list, Father. Shall we make our way through them?
Indeed.
All right. So these would be the gift received, and then the mission, the missio, to go out. So redimere, right? To buy back, to recover by ransom, to redeem, redimere.
Right, and this is what Christ is offering us, the gift of redemption.
That's right. Oftentimes, I think maybe in this extremely so-called tolerant culture that we have, we tend not to see Christ as Redeemer. We see him as the nice guy, but not as Redeemer, and that we are people who needed to be redeemed. Our flesh and our soul needed to be redeemed. And so Christ did that. He did that not only by being God, right, but by infleshing himself, by becoming incarnate. He redeemed the whole person, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Which leads us to salvare, to save. We also are people who are in need of salvation, and Christ gives that to us as a gift. And then, of course, sanctus, what we hope to be and what we sing at Mass, right?
Right, the idea that we are calling on holy. This is what the angels and what the saints will sing in heaven. And, of course, we want ourselves to be holy, to be set apart, to be entirely committed and sanctified for the Lord, and we want to be saints.
That's right. And to do that, we must be involved within the life of the church. We need to be involved in the work of the church, certainly in the liturgy, which is the work of the people. It's the worship that we offer to God. There is, though, perhaps a notion that we've got to be employed by the church, or we have to be an extraordinary minister of something, or we've got to be doing kind of on the other side of the communion rail. But Father, there seems to be some just new envisioning, new looking at the solution to clericalism, because this is a word that even Pope Francis has used, and it's kind of been thrown around a lot, and we tend to think of it in one way, but clericalism is not necessarily just having more of the laity involved or employed by the church, but there's something more to it.
Well, right. I mean, the great challenge of clericalism has always been the idea that my vocation is better than your vocation. You know, that notion that because I'm a priest, somehow or another, I am better than you. And if you really want to be good, you need to be like me. And that's the same broken notion we have in feminism that says, this kind of un-Catholic feminism that says, I'm a man, that makes me better than you. And so if you want to be good, you need to be as man-like as you can be, rather than embracing your nature, which is to be truly feminine, which is to be Mary-like, which is to be Eve-like. And there's all kinds of great theology with it. But one of the challenges we've had in the last 50 years has been that people have decided, well, instead of going out there and doing things, if I want to really show that I love the Lord, I need to be in the sanctuary. And so we could picture St. Bob's Church in Middlesbrough, wherever. And at St. Bob's, they have lectors, and they have acolytes, and they have greeters and ushers and all the usual stuff.
Yep.
And when the new family moves to town, they start to attend St. Bob's, and Joe and John and Jane Dozat get invited to the ministry fair, where they are asked to be lectors and extraordinary ministers, and they say, thanks, but no thanks.
Well, at least take these free balloons.
And you could imagine that everybody is suddenly, completely taken aback. Well, what do you mean? We want you to be involved. We want you to become part of our community.
Yeah.
But John says, look, I run a small business. I coach Little League. My wife is a housewife. She's a part-time physical therapist. We pray the rosary every night as a couple. But we want to sit in the pew with our kids. We want to parent our kids. And all the people are outraged. They go, what's wrong with these people?
Why won't you bake for us and with us?
Right. And John and Jane, though, are saying, look, our vocation is to be a married couple. And we believe that vocation is far more important than trying to be another vocation. And that's not to say that they're going to then blame and say, well, you shouldn't be a lector, this, that, or the other. But a lot of people think that clericalism is when the priest himself puts himself up, or when he's put up by others on a pedestal.
Yeah.
But what if, and I think this is common, what if we end up, the lay people of the church end up doing that to themselves? You know, what if that modern notion that you're only participating if you're doing something at Mass is in fact the worst kind of clericalism? And what if wherever it came from, it's rampant in your parish? I mean, is being a layperson so bad that you can only serve the Lord doing something that is technically reserved to the clergy? Lectoring is technically the job of the clergy. Serving the altar, distributing Holy Communion, even singing in the choir, these things were originally done by the clergy, and they're only done by the laity when there's a real need, when they can't be done by the clergy. And so I'm not in any way saying don't be a lector. I'm not saying don't join the choir. I just want to ask the question.
Yeah. And it's a very
impossible. Well, let me ask the question is this. Is it possible that we have gotten so concerned about doing something at Mass that we separate ourselves from our vocation? And as a vocation of the laity is to go out, misa, to go out and to bring others to the Lord, not just to do things at Mass. So that's the question.
Yeah, and one of my questions that would kind of be a follow-up to it, and maybe we can discuss it a little bit, but leave it fairly open, is because I hear people talk about all the time, well, I don't know what to do after I leave Mass. I don't know what God wants me to do. And it's almost as if maybe we identify doing things at church with fulfilling our obligation to be about the things of God, when in fact it is the liturgy that's supposed to be done unto us, in a sense, right? The liturgy is God giving to us. We perform the work of prayer. We lift our minds and hearts to God together, and then God gives us the great gift of His sacraments. It's kind of like we're going into that chair in the Matrix, and we're submitting to have the rod kind of jammed in the back of our neck. And the Lord is loading into us all the stuff that we need to get through life, to do what we need daily. And I wonder sometimes if we think that the only place that we can find holiness, the only place that we can find a place where we belong, is if we're inside the four walls of the church. I don't know. Kathleen, is this kind of jiving at all?
Yeah.
Because we're just priests talking here. But
yeah, we, as someone who, for school, for other things, has been involved in the Mass in more than one capacity, it's often those times when I don't have anything to do, when I just attend Mass, when I'm not worried about being in the choir or reading or Eucharistic ministering, that's when, it's kind of like being quiet. That's when God speaks to you the most.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just quiet and still, that's when you pick up on things that maybe you've been missing out on or that you didn't even realize were, happening in the Mass. You go, oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Finally, There have been a few times, and it's interesting because as a priest, I very rarely get the notion to go and sit in the back and be a person in the pew. But one of the great gifts within the presbyterate is being able to attend Mass in choir, which means that I'm not concelebrating. I'm not sitting as a person in the back of the pew, but I'm sitting vested in surplice and cassock, and I'm simply assisting at the liturgy as a cleric would, right? And that there's a great and sometimes there's great merit to being able to do that. So, well, I'm not concelebrating because I've said my 2 or 3 masses already for this weekend, but to be able to sit and to allow the liturgy to wash over me, that actually can be very, very rejuvenating, And I don't feel like I got to be doing something because liturgy is not always about doing. Would you say, Father?
No, it can't be always about doing. I mean, there has to be a certain sense where the faithful have to be, like in the book of Revelation, simply looking on the altar where Christ does the hard work and the faithful have to receive. Because if you're not getting fed, you can't go out about your mission.
Right.
And the mission of the laity is not inside the walls of that church.
Yeah, and isn't it oftentimes when folks leave the church, they say it's because I wasn't being fed?
Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes these are people that are involved in many of the ministries and apostolates of the parish, and yet they'll still say I'm not being fed. And I'm wondering if maybe it's because we don't want to be. Sometimes I don't know that we want to be fed in any other way than we think we should be. So I don't know. This is the reason we ask the question is because we are the Catholic Underground, and it is our job to maybe ask these deeper questions. And I'm not saying, Father, we have an answer for it, because there is value in the present state. There is necessity for those who are performing some of these ministries, these official ministries in the sanctuary. But yeah, it's an important question to ask. Am I too involved that perhaps I myself am kind of becoming clericalized as a layperson?
Yeah.
And I don't think it's about going through the motions, because it's easy to get caught up in that. And you have to do that soul searching and constant. To me, it's all about your prayer life, and seeking from God what He wants of you.
And that's part of the discernment too, right?
Yeah,
I shouldn't be a lector unless the Lord is calling it forth from me, because that's what we believe about the ministries of the church, is that they are called forth, right, Father? They are called forth specifically. Ministries are. For the building up of the kingdom of God.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So we asked that question. We simply pose it to you. Let us know what you think in the com box on Facebook /Catholic Underground, or certainly at CatholicUnderground.com, backchat at CatholicUnderground.com. You know, all those usual ways. But we have run far afield, so it's time for
the CU Pick of the Week.
Alrighty, and for our first CU Pick of the Week, we're going to move right on through to Kathleen. You go, girl.
Yes. Okay, so as a type 2 diabetic, I'm always looking for something that is sweet to drink, but not full of sugar, and I think I have found it. So for those of you who should not be drinking sugar, which is most of us, I propose to you Fuse Slenderize. Now, I brought mine with me.
Oh, yeah. So if
today.
You're watching the video feed, you can see it's a rather tall bottle. Mm-hmm. It's pastel colored.
It's beautiful. It's 16.9 fluid ounces. What? So it's a lot of drink. And I am the queen of telling you, like, I know you could put something that's diet and not diet in front of me. I will always tell you which one is the diet. I know. Don't try and trick me. So, but these Fuse Slenderize drinks are 10 to 20 calories per all of this. 2 to 3 grams of sugar. What? And they taste really good. So if you're looking for something this summer while you're out doing stuff to give you a little bit, and it's not watery. It's it's not like a flavored water. It's wrought with
flavor.
Yeah. Very, very good. Very low calorie. Very low sugar. Yeah. And yet really good. It satisfies that need for the sweet in your drink.
And Jeff Blackwell, you're satisfying the need for sweet on the air.
And my pick of the week is the St. Bob's Koozie.
You can only get it at the St. Bob's Parish Fair.
I just thought Father Ryan would like that. No, mine this week is, pull out. You don't have to pull out the walkers and rocking chairs, but I do love the old movies on Turner Classic Movies, and they have an app. I've had it for a few months, and I wanted to try and see how it worked as far as the streaming and what have you. The catch is it has to be on your cable system for you to be able to get it free. I don't know if they have a subscription to Turner Classic Movies, but tcm.com is where you find it. It's terrific to be able to, like I was in a waiting room having some tires put on the truck yesterday, and I watched part of an old movie, which I really liked. And they always have a great selection of film noir, the older movies, even some more current ones. When I say current, I'm talking about not in this century, but
it was current for 1922.
Yeah, well, even 1970 something. But and documentaries and what have you. So it's a great app, and it's a free app, and you can watch it on your computer on demand, or even watch the live stream.
Very cool, Father Ryan.
I have recently reread all the Harry Potter books just because I had a little bit of free time. And so I wanted to, I had forgotten how excellent those books were, about how very, very well they kind of grow one to the other. I still don't recommend them for little children. I wouldn't recommend them starting before they're 13, 14 years old, but the books are really entertaining, and they really do have some literary merit as you get further along. So I want to recommend those. And I also want to recommend Keurig iced beverages. If you have a Keurig machine, there's a lot of these great iced beverages. They sell tea and lemonade and things like that are delicious and easy. And so go out on your porch and bring a Keurig iced beverage and read the Harry Potter books. It's great.
Did you have an iced beverage while you were reading the Harry Potter books?
Most of them.
There you go. So my pick of the week actually has a little bit to do with the little Disney Pixels, the motorized pickles we talked about earlier. The old men of Disney, the very first animators, developed a series of 12 principles of animation, basically what you need to do to animate and animate well. And over at 12 Principles on Tumblr, we'll put the link in our show notes, you can see all these 12 principles that give the illusion of life. And they're animated by a nice animator, and they also are on in a digital format in a video, so you can watch them all at once. And so these are the 12 principles. If you're thinking about getting into animation, the 12 principles by the old men of Disney to give the illusion of life. And certainly, if you watch any of the Disney films and really a lot of other animation nowadays, they follow these 12 principles. So I recommend that highly. We always thank those who support us, Jeff Blackwell, don't we?
Yes, indeed we do, and portions of the Catholic Underground are underwritten by audibletrial.com/Catholic Underground. That's audibletrial.com/Catholic Underground.
That's right, and we thank you certainly for helping us out there. We also thank you for all of those who have donated to us. If you've helped out the Apostolate of Catholic Underground in the past, and it's been about a year, go and check all your credentials and make sure that your expiration date on your credit card is up to date, just so that you can continue to help us bring our podcast to you, our video feed to you, and you're also helping us to update some of our technology, which has to happen periodically. If you want the show notes that accompany this episode, you can go to CatholicUnderground.com. You can click on the latest show, and that will bring you to the show notes for this episode. So if you missed something, if you didn't know what we were talking about, head over to CatholicUnderground.com. Our show is usually posted within the first 2 or 3 days after it airs, and you can get all the stuff that we talked about. If you want to find out about our apostolate, if you want to learn ways that you can connect with us on Twitter and Facebook, you can head over to CatholicUnderground.com and find all of that information there. Father Ryan's church is truly online at minorbasilica.org. He is at F.R. Humphreys on Twitter. Father Ryan, we thank you for joining us because, well, that's just part of who you are.
And I receive your thanks.
And do you return it?
I do, with great gusto.
That's very good. I would expect nothing less. You're a good man. Jeff Blackwell is the tech director for the CU. He is the ruling despot at the Blackwell Communications Group. JeffBlackwell.us is the way you can find him on the internets. And he's on Twitter, too, at Jeff Blackwellis. Thank you, Jeff.
It's an honor, Father.
Kathleen Lee is our faith ninja. She's still at Kathleen YABR over there on the Twitter. And Kathleen, we thank you for joining us.
Anytime.
Yes, well, a good thing, too. Mary Kate Taylor is an evangelist. In her spare time, she reads the catechism aloud to her stuffed animals. She really does. It's fascinating to watch, And you know me. I am merely Father Chris Decker. You can follow me on Twitter at Digital Catholic. You can join us on the interwebs at CatholicUnderground.tv for even more from the CU. There's always something going on. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us on Digital Continent. We're CatholicUnderground.com. We're Faith Gone Digital, and I promise we will see you next time.
From the Catholic Underground.